So picture this. A regional subcontractor who, like, doesn't know a single line of code suddenly builds this massive national tech infrastructure literally overnight.
Right, just out of nowhere.
Yeah, out of nowhere. Or, a small business buys a 15-pound online video course and then overtakes a global giant on Google rankings just a few weeks later.
It's wild. It really is.
It is, because right now, if you look at the media, everyone is entirely obsessed with these trillion-dollar tech conglomerates.
Oh, absolutely. The big guys.
Yeah, they're all fighting over who will build superintelligence first, but the actual economic revolution, the one that is fundamentally rewiring the fabric of commerce as we speak, it isn't happening in some heavily guarded server farm in Silicon Valley.
No, not at all.
It is happening right down your street.
Yeah, and it is a massive blind spot in our current cultural conversation.
Totally.
Like, we are staring so intently at the race for artificial general intelligence that we are completely missing the explosion of, everyday applied intelligence.
Right, applied intelligence.
Exactly. And historically speaking, applied intelligence on the local level, that is what actually transforms an economy.
Which brings us to the core of what we are doing today. Because for this deep dive, we have an incredibly unique, highly practical stack of sources.
We really do. It's a great mix.
It is. We are working from a comprehensive briefing document alongside this fascinating transcript.
Yeah, the transcript is so insightful.
Now, the main speaker in this transcript has a serious resume. They are a prominent former UK Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Right, a heavy hitter.
But interestingly, though, their story doesn't actually start in politics.
No, it doesn't.
It starts with them growing up working in a family pharmacy in Southampton.
Which I just love. It grounds the whole perspective,
Yeah, it really does. And today they advise heavyweights like Goldman Sachs, Microsoft, and Anthropic.
But alongside their macroeconomic insights, we also have this raw, on-the-ground data.
Exactly. Real case studies.
Right? From 5 very distinct small business leaders.
Yeah.
We've got Joe, Anthony, Rava, Allison, and Phil.
It creates this brilliant cross-section, doesn't it?
It really does, because you have the 10,000-foot view of global finance and national economic policy colliding directly with the gritty reality of, like, a local property management firm.
Right, or a regional subcontractor just trying to figure out how to, make payroll.
Yeah, make payroll, optimize their workflows, and scale up without just completely imploding.
But before we get into the leads of exactly how they did it, I want to make one thing crystal clear for you listening.
Definitely a crucial point to make here.
Yeah, because our primary source today involves a prominent political figure. We are going to maintain absolute political impartiality.
100%.
We are not endorsing any political party, platform, or past administration. Our focus today is purely on the objective, factual business strategies and the technological framework presented in these documents.
Just the business playbook, nothing else.
Nothing else. So, setting the politics entirely aside, okay, let's unpack this. Because the economic stakes laid out in this briefing are almost uncomfortably high.
They really are.
Yeah.
The source material does not pull any punches.
No, it doesn't.
The briefing document describes AI not just as a disruptive piece of software, but explicitly as a universal technology.
A universal technology.
Yeah. And we need to be clear about what that term actually means in an economic context, right? Because it places AI in the exact same historical category as the invention of steam power.
Wow.
Or, the mass distribution of electricity.
So, meaning it doesn't just make one specific industry a little bit faster, it rewrites the foundational physics of every industry simultaneously.
Yes. Exactly that. But here is the truly staggering prediction in our sources.
Okay.
They estimate that the economic impact of artificial intelligence will be twice as large as the entire Industrial Revolution.
Twice as large.
And it's going to happen in exactly half the time.
I just need to pause on that for a second. Twice the impact in half the time.
It's a lot to wrap your head around.
It's nuts. The Industrial Revolution completely reorganized human existence.
Literally changed everything.
Yeah, it moved us from agrarian farm systems to hyper-dense cities. It changed how we measure time, how we work, how society functions.
Right.
And we're looking at something twice as disruptive, compressed into half the timeline. That level of velocity it's terrifying.
It is terrifying. And that speed is precisely where the danger lies for small and medium enterprises, SMEs.
Why specifically SMEs?
Well, let's look at the math provided in the briefing. SMEs make up roughly half of the UK economy.
Okay.
Even just looking at the specific Goldman Sachs 10,000 small businesses program that's referenced in our text, those companies alone provide 80,000 jobs and generate a massive £10 billion in annual turnover.
That's a huge chunk of the economy.
Huge. But traditionally, small businesses are notoriously slow to adopt new technology.
Because they're too busy. Right.
Exactly. They are too busy fighting daily fires and keeping the lights on to experiment with theoretical tech.
Right. They don't have a massive R&D budget to just play around.
No, they don't. And if they sit this technological wave out, the sources warn we are heading straight for an aggressively K-shaped economy.
Okay, I know anyone who follows economics understands the K-shape, right? The lines diverge, the winners shoot up the top arm of the K, and the losers just plummet down the bottom.
Yeah, that's the classic model.
But with AI, I imagine the sheer angle of that divergence is what's unprecedented here.
It's near vertical.
Wow.
It is a scenario where global giants who, already have the capital to invest billions in proprietary AI infrastructure, they completely swallow up or crowd out small businesses at a speed we just haven't seen before.
Because they can just do everything cheaper and faster.
Right. The local high street simply evaporates because they cannot compete with the margins.
That's bleak.
It is, but the briefing also highlights the exact opposite scenario.
Oh, good.
Yeah, if an SME does adopt this technology, it acts as the ultimate Great Equalizer. It allows a 10-person shop to compete on a scale of output and data analysis that was mathematically impossible for them even 36 months ago.
Okay, so the obvious question for you listening is, how do you actually do that?
Right.
If I'm running, I don't know, a mid-sized logistics firm or a boutique marketing agency, how do I capture that upside?
Where do you even begin?
Exactly. And the source material is adamant that you do not start with the software.
No, you don't.
You don't start by upgrading your servers. You have to start with the person sitting in the main office.
You start with the CEO's mindset.
The mindset.
It is the absolute prerequisite for everything else. Our sources cite rigorous research from McKinsey, and it makes it unequivocally clear.
What does the data say?
It says the responsibility for AI adoption cannot be outsourced to the IT department.
Which is fascinating because that is the default corporate reflex, isn't it?
Oh, totally.
It's like, hey, tech team, go do the AI thing. Let me know when the robots are ready. I'll be over here running the actual business.
Yeah, it is the easiest trap to fall into. But McKinsey's data shows that AI implementation is drastically more successful when the leaders themselves show personal, hands-on ownership and commitment.
So they have to get their hands dirty.
You cannot lead a fundamental business revolution from the passenger seat. You have to understand the engine.
And this brings us to the first of the 5 SME leaders in the source material, Joe.
Right, Joe from Marmalade Marketing.
Yeah. And what I really appreciate about Joe's story is that her entry into the world of AI wasn't born out of some sudden visionary desire to innovate.
No, that was both.
It was pure, unadulterated panic.
The inciting incident of disruption is rarely comfortable, is it?
No. The briefing details this moment so vividly. It's the very beginning of the ChatGPT boom. The awareness is just starting to hit the mainstream, right?
Yeah, everyone's just hearing about it.
And Joe gets a phone call from a major client in the Netherlands.
Okay.
And this client doesn't call to politely ask about upgrading their service. They demand twice the content, twice the strategic output for a third of the previous price.
Which, if you apply the laws of traditional commercial physics, is an absurd, offensive request.
It's insulting.
You cannot double the raw materials and human labor hours while simultaneously cutting the budget by roughly 66%. It fundamentally breaks the agency model.
So Joe's immediate, visceral response on the phone is just no.
As it would be.
But the client asks, why not? And Joe has this moment of stark, terrifying realization where she is forced to admit out loud, I don't know yet.
Oh, wow. That's a huge moment.
Yeah, that phone call was the wake-up call. It made her realize that the client's perception of value and the baseline cost of production in her industry had literally changed overnight.
The rules of the game shifted.
Exactly. The client knew AI existed, assumed Joe could use it to cut costs, and demanded the savings.
And if she didn't figure out how to meet that demand,
Someone else using AI absolutely would.
so she takes extreme action.
She does.
She doesn't just, read a few articles. She enrolls in an intensive, highly academic course on AI at Oxford University to forge that necessary leadership mindset.
And the sources note that she spent 3 months deeply upset and stressed by the sheer intensity of the material.
Yeah, she joked that the workload almost cost her her marriage.
Right. But the output was that she didn't just learn how to type questions into a chatbot. She learned how to navigate the strategic, existential disruption AI was bringing to the marketing sector.
She got the big picture.
She gained the deep knowledge required to inform her clients, restructure her team's workflows, and she eventually became a guest lecturer at the University of Manchester on AI adoption.
It's a remarkable pivot, really.
Yeah.
From absolute panic to total authority.
It is, but I have to push back on this on behalf of the listener.
Okay, go for it.
Because if I am running a local plumbing logistics company or a regional bakery chain, I'm listening to this and thinking, do I really need to go get an intensive academic degree from Oxford just to figure out how to use ChatGPT in my supply chain?
Yeah, I see your point.
That seems like a massive, impenetrable barrier to entry. I mean, what is the actual danger if I just buy some enterprise AI licenses, hand them to my staff, and say, have at it?
You're asking what's the worst that could happen.
Exactly. Is handing AI to an untrained staff without an Oxford-educated leader really that catastrophic? I mean, is it like handing the keys of a Ferrari to someone who only has a learner's permit?
What's fascinating here is how Jo actually answers that exact fear in her case study.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because she did try to put standard guidelines in place early on. She established basic corporate protocols for what was acceptable use among her staff and her freelance copywriters.
Okay, so she had rules.
She had rules, but she found that even with those rules, if the leadership doesn't possess a deep structural understanding of how the tech works, you end up with what she brilliantly terms an AI joyride.
The AI joyride.
Yes.
Okay, what does that mean?
Well, think about what happens when a leader isn't fluent. The staff, who are highly incentivized to save time, will just start using the tools secretly. They will take that high-performance vehicle out for a joyride without telling the boss.
Just writing their reports with it on the sly.
Exactly. They will use the AI to generate a complex market analysis, polish it up nicely, and present it to the boardroom as if it were the product of 40 hours of grueling human research.
And the boss, who doesn't know the distinct voice of a large language model or understand its limitations, looks at it and says, wow, you wrote this comprehensive 40-page strategy document over the weekend? You're a genius. Let's implement this immediately.
Precisely. And Jo warns that this creates a very dangerous, totally false sense of confidence at the boardroom table.
Because it looks professional.
Right. The grammar is flawless, the structure is very sound, but currently it lacks true, localized, human critical thinking.
It misses the context of the actual business.
Exactly. And Jo uses a very specific metaphor here. She calls AI output grains of silver.
Grains of silver. Let's unpack that.
So think about raw silver. In its unrefined state, it has inherent value, yes. But you cannot wear a lump of raw silver. It isn't a finished product.
Right.
It requires a silversmith to apply heat, to hammer it, to shape it, to understand its structural weak points, and to craft it into a piece of fine jewelry. AI output is just that raw grain of silver. It is highly valuable raw material. But the human leader, the employee, must be the silversmith.
So they have to shape it.
Yes. If the leadership cannot challenge the AI output because they lack the fluency to recognize raw silver versus finished jewelry, the company is flying blind at 100 miles an hour.
Making strategic decisions based on algorithmic hallucinations or generic averages.
Exactly. It's a huge risk.
Okay, that makes total sense. The leader has to be the final filter. They have to possess enough fluency to look at a piece of work and say, this lacks our actual brand perspective, or I know for a fact the AI is hallucinating this data point about our competitor.
Exactly. They have to be the silversmith.
My pushback stands. I still cannot afford the cost, the time, or the marital stress of an Oxford course.
Fair enough.
Thankfully, the source material does not leave us hanging there. It gives us a completely different, radically democratic alternative.
And this contrast is vital for the listener, because right after detailing Jo's intensive academic route, the transcript highlights another business leader, Rava, from Monster Group.
Okay, Rava.
Yeah. Rava and his management team didn't go to Oxford.
They skipped the university route.
Completely. They recognized the exact same need for leadership fluency to prevent the AI joyride, but they went to an online educational marketplace platform called Udemy.
And they found a course on ChatGPT for exactly £15.
£15.
Wow.
And Rava explicitly states in the briefing that it was the best £15 they ever spent as a company.
I love that.
Yeah, the entire management team took the course together. They didn't learn how to build neural networks. They learned the operational basics.
Right.
They understood the framework, the limitations, and they immediately started building strategic guardrails to grow their business.
I love that juxtaposition so much. Oxford on one hand, a 15-pound video course on the other. But the functional business result is exactly the same: leadership fluency.
Yes, the outcome is identical.
It proves that to be the silversmith, you don't need to be a software engineer. You do not need to learn how to code Python or understand the deep, complex mathematics behind large language models.
No, not at all.
You just need conceptual fluency. You need to know what the tool can do, what it categorically cannot do, and how to manage the psychology of the human beings using it.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it underscores a fundamental point made by the former prime minister in the transcript.
What was the quote?
The quote is, "You don't have to become a programmer overnight, but it's about awareness. It's about the right mindset."
That's perfect.
Yeah, the goal of leadership training isn't technical mastery. It is strategic awareness. You need to know enough to set the North Star for your company and build the guardrails so your team can move incredibly fast without crashing.
All right, so let's assume the listener has done it. You're the CEO, you spent your 15 pounds, you took the weekend course, you understand the difference between raw silver and finished jewelry.
You're ready to go.
You were ready to transform your company. Now, you hit the absolute hardest, messiest part of the entire process.
The human
The
element.
workforce.
Oh, yeah.
Because you can have the most elegant, perfectly architected AI strategy in the world, but if your staff refuses to engage with it or actively sabotages it, you have nothing.
Of absolutely nothing.
And the biggest barrier to AI adoption, according to the data in our sources, is not token limits or API costs or software integration. It is pure, unfiltered human fear.
And we have to acknowledge that it is a completely rational fear.
Oh, completely.
I mean, employees read the exact same doom-laden headlines we do. They hear that AI is coming for white-collar jobs.
Yeah.
So put yourself in their shoes. When a CEO walks into a Monday morning all-hands meeting and says, "Great news, everyone. We have a new initiative. We are integrating AI to automate and streamline our workflows." Right.
What the employee actually hears is, "Great news. Half of you are going to be made redundant by Christmas."
Oh, 100%. If my boss says streamline, I hear severance package.
Exactly.
So how does a leader actually navigate that? How do you convince a terrified employee that this technology isn't there to eat them? How do you reframe automation so it doesn't sound like a thinly veiled layoff announcement?
The sources provide a literal masterclass in this, specifically through the case study of Anthony.
Anthony from Ground Up Property.
Right. So Anthony realized very early on that you cannot mandate technological adoption from the top down without actively neutralizing the ground level anxiety.
Okay, so what does he do?
He instituted a practice of spending 1 to 2 hours every single week doing deep one-on-one sessions with his staff, specifically about AI.
Let me stop you right there, because if I'm a CEO listening to this, my alarm bells are ringing.
I know, it sounds like a lot.
Hmm.
1 to 2 hours per employee per week. That does not scale. If you have 20 employees, that is your entire work week gone just doing therapy sessions about software.
I see why you'd say that, but you have to view it not as an operational cost, but as an upfront capital investment in your workforce's capability.
An investment.
Yes. Anthony understood that if he didn't invest that time, adoption would be zero.
Fair enough.
In those highly personalized sessions, he fundamentally changed the framing. He didn't just talk about company efficiency. He explicitly looked them in the eye and said, "I'm not saying you won't have a job anymore."
He hit it head on.
He did. And instead, he introduced a brilliant, very deliberate analogy. He framed the AI not as a replacement, but as a personal assistant, or as he memorably called it, a cheetah.
A cheetah. I love the imagery, but honestly, a cheetah is a hyper-lethal apex predator.
Yeah.
If my boss hands me a cheetah, I'm still pretty sure my primary concern is getting eaten.
It is the bold metaphor.
Yeah.
But the specific idea Anthony was conveying was about harnessing raw, explosive speed that you control.
Ah.
You are riding the cheetah. You aren't its prey.
Right.
And he didn't just tell them this, he showed them. He sat down and demonstrated how he, as the CEO, was using it every day to write complex emails and guide daily operations.
Leadings by example.
Exactly. He led with extreme vulnerability. He showed his staff how he personally used to struggle to put his scattered, chaotic thoughts into a structured email.
Right.
And how he now used the AI to turn those rough bullet points into perfect templates in seconds.
That is such a crucial leadership tactic, that vulnerability.
It changes the whole dynamic.
He wasn't sitting there saying, look at this perfect, flawless robot that is better than you. He was saying, look at how this incredibly fast tool helps my flawed, imperfect human brain overcome its own bottlenecks.
Exactly. And the sources point out a fascinating psychological reality that leaders often miss.
What's that?
Surveys consistently show that the vast majority of people in the job market actually want to learn AI skills.
Really? They aren't just completely resistant.
No, they aren't Luddites. They know it's the future of work. They want to remain relevant and employable.
That makes sense.
If a company signals that it is willing to invest in them and help them learn, rather than using the tech to secretly replace them, employees will seize the opportunity.
But I'll argue there's still a missing piece here.
Okay, what's missing?
Even with those great one-on-ones, if the boss is still the one dictating how the cheetah is used, like, here is the AI, please use it to write these specific reports, it still feels like a top-down mandate.
That's a valid point.
And the sources introduce another leader, Allison, who found a completely different, arguably more effective way to win over the workforce.
Yes, Allison's approach is probably the most powerful psychological tool detailed in the entire briefing document.
Yeah, she used a concept she calls co-creation.
Co-creation.
Meaning she didn't just buy an enterprise software package, drop the login credentials on the team's desk and say, figure out how to make us money.
Far from it. As Allison profoundly noted, if the team hasn't identified a problem themselves, then in their minds, the problem doesn't exist.
Right.
If leadership tries to unilaterally fix a workflow problem that the team doesn't perceive as broken, you get massive passive-aggressive resistance.
People hate being told to fix something that isn't broken.
Exactly. So Allison started completely differently. She sat down with her customer service team and asked them to forensically dissect their own daily journeys.
Okay.
She asked a very simple, very human question. Where are your friction points?
She basically asked, what parts of your job make you want to quit?
Exactly. She actively hunted for the drudgery.
The drudgery.
Yes. And the team was more than happy to point it out. They identified all these highly repetitive, soul-crushing tasks.
Like what?
Like throwing out outdated spreadsheets, manually copying and pasting data from emails into the CRM system, endlessly populating databases.
Ugh, the worst kind of work.
Right. These were tasks where the employees didn't even understand the deeper strategic purpose of what they were doing. They were just acting as human API integrations, robotic gears in a slow machine.
And this is the magic trick of co-creation. By asking the team to identify the parts of their job they absolutely despise, AI is no longer positioned as a tool coming to replace the employee.
Right.
It is positioned as a highly targeted weapon to assassinate the drudgery. It takes away the worst 30% of their day.
It creates a profound psychological shift in the workforce. You move the employee from feeling threatened to feeling empowered.
I love that.
The AI becomes a liberator. The employee is no longer competing with the machine. They're actively delegating their worst tasks to it.
And when you combine Anthony's deep leadership commitment and Allison's co-creation method, the results are staggering.
The numbers speak for themselves.
The transcript notes that by involving the workforce and systematically automating things like drafting routine quotes, generating weekly reports, and managing the daily flood of emails, Anthony's company, Ground Up Property, doubled its turnover in just 6 months.
Doubled turnover in 6 months.
That is insane.
That is the literal definition of a universal technology at work.
Yeah.
We're not talking about a 5% incremental efficiency gain from a new project management tool.
Right.
It is a fundamental exponential scaling of output without linearly scaling the headcount, the overhead, or the stress levels of the existing staff.
Okay, so let's check our progress on the playbook. You have the CEO, trained and fluent. You have the staff on board, their fears neutralized, happily riding their cheetahs and co-creating solutions to their daily drudgery.
Everyone is happy.
Everyone is saving hours a day. And the natural instinct, and honestly, the instinct of 99% of businesses out there, is to stop right there.
Oh, yeah. Call it a day.
To look at the balance sheet, see the dramatically reduced operational costs, declare victory, and pop the champagne. But our sources wave a massive flashing red flag here.
A huge red flag.
They argue that settling for efficiency is a terminal trap.
It is a profound strategic trap. And the former prime minister emphasizes this point heavily in the transcript.
What's the main error?
The biggest mistake companies make is looking at the technology first, saying, what cool things can this AI do? and then searching for a place to shoehorn it into their business.
Right, solution searching for a problem.
Exactly. Instead, you must ruthlessly examine your business bottlenecks first, and then apply the tech. But more importantly, if you view AI solely as an efficiency tool, you are leaving the true transformative value on the table.
Because efficiency is just cost saving.
Efficiency is merely cost saving.
And cost saving, ultimately, is a race to the bottom.
Precisely. Think about the math. If you use an AI tool to save 20% on your operational costs today, your competitor down the street is going to buy that exact same off-the-shelf tool tomorrow, and they will save 20% too.
Right.
They will pass those savings on to the consumer, and suddenly your margins are exactly where they started.
So you gain nothing long term.
Your competitive advantage lasts exactly as long as it takes your rival to install the software. True, sustainable competitive advantage doesn't come from efficiency, it comes from growth.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because when we transition from talking about efficiency to talking about growth, the source material gives us what might be my absolute favorite case study of this entire deep dive.
Oh, the vacuum cleaners.
Yes, this is the story of Rava from Monster Group and the vacuum cleaners.
It is a brilliant, highly practical example of using AI to execute a task that simply wouldn't have been feasible at scale for a small, under-resourced team previously.
So let's break down the mechanics of this. How did Monster Group pivot from just saving money to actually driving massive new revenue growth?
Rather than using AI inwardly to just write faster internal emails or automate their supply chain spreadsheets, Rava's team pointed the AI outward, directly at the market.
Okay, pointed outward.
Specifically, they used it for high-level product purchasing and development. Before they committed to manufacturing a new product, they used AI to conduct incredibly thorough, exhaustive market research on all of their competitors' existing products.
Let's pause and think about how a small business traditionally does thorough market research. What does that actually mean?
It's a nightmare.
It means paying an external consulting firm tens of thousands of pounds, organizing slow focus groups, or literally having a junior employee manually read through thousands of Amazon reviews for 3 weeks straight until they are completely numb to the data.
Right. Traditional methods are prohibitively expensive, painfully time-consuming, and highly prone to human error or confirmation bias.
A human reader gets tired and misses the subtle trends.
But Rava's team bypassed all of that. They took massive amounts of competitor product reviews and fed them directly into the AI.
I want to get granular here for the listener who is thinking about the how. Because you can't just copy and paste 10,000 Amazon reviews into a standard ChatGPT window.
No, the system will crash, or you'll hit a token limit.
Right. So how do they actually do this?
Well, while the briefing doesn't give us their proprietary source code, the standard framework for this involves batch processing.
Okay.
They likely used an API or data scraping tool to pull the reviews into a structured format, like a massive spreadsheet. Then they feed that data to the AI in chunks, or use an advanced data analysis model.
Okay, that makes sense technically.
But the key isn't just dumping data, it's the specific prompt they used. Because AI is fundamentally a hyper-advanced engine for pattern recognition, they didn't ask it for a general summary.
What do they ask?
They asked it a highly targeted and highly valuable question. Analyze these 5,000 negative reviews and identify the single most consistent pattern of customer complaint for this specific type of product.
They asked the AI to find the single most profitable needle in a massive haystack of complaining customers.
Exactly. And the AI, which doesn't get tired and doesn't lose focus, instantly analyzed thousands of reviews and returned a highly specific, immediately actionable insight.
Which was?
For a particular line of vacuum cleaners they were researching, the AI recognized a consistent, overwhelming pattern of frustration. The competitors' vacuum power cords were uniformly too short.
It's so simple.
It is.
It's almost stupidly simple, but it's exactly the kind of mundane detail that completely gets lost in a sea of mixed 4-star reviews if a human is trying to read them all and manually catalog the complaints.
But the AI caught the signal through the noise. So what did Monster Group do with this information? They didn't just note it in a file. They acted on it aggressively. They went to their manufacturers and designed their own vacuum cleaner specifically built with an extra-long power cord.
And then they built their entire marketing and conversion campaign around that single AI-identified feature.
Yes.
They didn't market the raw suction power. They didn't market the sleek aerodynamic design. They marketed the cord length. because they knew with absolute data-backed mathematical certainty that it was the biggest unaddressed pain point for buyers in that specific market segment.
And the commercial results were explosive. It drove massive conversions. It gave a huge immediate boost to their qualified leads.
Just from a longer cord.
But the brilliance of Arava's team is that they didn't stop there. They realized they had a working growth engine, so they applied the exact same AI pattern recognition to their SEO strategy.
How do they execute that?
They analyzed the similarities between all the top-ranking Google search results for their target keywords. They used the AI to dissect the structure, the keyword density, the semantic themes of the content that was already winning. And then they used the AI to help generate and optimize their own content so that it perfectly matched those exact proven algorithmic patterns.
And the outcome of applying AI to both product development and SEO.
Rava states that before integrating AI, their own website, Monster Shop, was ranking roughly 15th or 16th in terms of revenue across the various marketplace platforms they sold on.
Okay, middle of the pack.
Right. By applying this aggressive, growth-focused AI strategy, they rocketed up the charts to become the second largest marketplace they operate on.
From 15th to 2nd. Just by using pattern recognition to find out that people wanted a longer cord and writing better SEO content based on data rather than guessing.
Incredible, isn't it?
That is the perfect illustration of what you mean when you say growth provides a competitive advantage that mere efficiency cannot.
It's a completely different league.
But there's another growth story in our sources that might be even more mind-bending than the vacuum cords. And it brings us back to Allison.
Yes, Allison's experience operating a regional subcontracting business.
So, to recap where Allison was, she had successfully co-created AI solutions with her customer service team. They had assassinated the drudgery, and the business was running efficiently.
Right. Everything was smooth.
But then she hit a massive ceiling. She wanted to expand her business significantly, but to execute her vision, she realized she needed technical capabilities that simply did not exist within her current team.
A very common problem.
Specifically, she needed to know how to code complex systems in Python.
Which is the classic, tragic SME bottleneck. You have the ambition to grow, you have the market opportunity, but you lack the specialized technical skills to build the infrastructure.
And you simply do not have the capital runway to go out and hire a team of senior Python developers.
Exactly. In the pre-AI past, that is where the growth story abruptly ends. You remain a regional player forever.
But Allison didn't accept that. She had an AI partner. She used a large language model called Claude.
Yes, Claude from Anthropic.
Now, I want to guess how she did this. If I'm her, I just type into Claude, please write a Python script that does X, Y, and Z for my subcontracting business, and then I copy and paste whatever it spits out. Is that how she scaled?
No. And it's vital that she didn't do that.
Why not?
Because if she just had Claude write the code, she would have a black box. The moment that code broke, or the moment she needed to update it to handle a new national client, she wouldn't know how to fix it, and her entire business would grind to a halt.
She wouldn't possess the fluency we talked about earlier.
Exactly. Instead, she asked the AI to actually teach her.
She used it as a tutor.
Exactly. She said to Claude, I want to achieve this specific operational outcome. I don't know anything about programming. Teach me, step by step, how to build this in Python.
That requires such a massive leap of faith.
She describes it in the briefing as being quite scary at first. She explicitly refers to herself as a person who could not program at all. But the AI acted as an infinitely patient, infinitely knowledgeable tutor. It walked her through the initial logic, it helped her write the first lines, and crucially, when she inevitably made errors, the AI helped her debug the code.
So it didn't just fix it, it explained it.
Right, explaining exactly why it failed and how to fix it. It held her hand through the entire process until she built the exact technical systems she needed to scale.
And what was the tangible business result of a regional subcontractor suddenly possessing advanced, bespoke Python capabilities seemingly overnight?
It unlocked entirely new operational capabilities that her regional competitors couldn't touch. It allowed her company to scale from operating strictly on a localized regional level to managing complex operations nationally.
National operations.
She states explicitly in the transcript that this massive national expansion would never have been possible without the technical innovations she was able to build herself through AI.
If we step back for a second and look at the macro implications of what Allison did, it is the ultimate proof of the democratizing power of this technology.
It really is.
It completely shatters the traditional barriers to entry that have protected large corporations for decades. You no longer need to spend 4 years and 50,000 pounds at a university to acquire a technical skill necessary to grow your business.
You no longer need a massive R&D budget.
You just need the ambition to ask the AI to teach you and the persistence to learn.
It fundamentally redefines what it means for a business to be under-resourced. A 10-person small business with a growth mindset and an AI tutor is no longer under-resourced. They are hyper-resourced.
Which sounds like an absolute fairy tale. A regional business scales nationally. A 15-pound course drives a company to the top of Google. It's a perfect, frictionless upward trajectory.
If only it were that simple.
Right. Because we live in the real world. And in the real world, when you start scaling a business that fast, you eventually slam headfirst into a very rigid, very unforgiving wall.
You hit the wall of regulation and governance.
Exactly. You scale a business nationally, and suddenly you're dealing with a terrifying labyrinth of compliance laws, data privacy acts, and industry regulators who do not care one bit about your growth mindset or your AI cheetahs.
No, they absolutely do not.
They only care about whether you are strictly adhering to the law. And the sources point out that this fear of regulatory governance is the primary reason many mature companies refuse to touch AI at all.
And honestly, it is a highly justified fear. Think about the catastrophic risks.
It's massive.
If an employee casually feeds sensitive customer data or proprietary financial records into a public open-source AI model and that data leaks.
Or is absorbed into the training data for the public model.
Exactly. Your company is going to face devastating, potentially business-ending legal consequences.
Which brings us to our final SME leader, Phil, from Bridgewater Home Care. Now, Phil operates in the home care sector. You want to talk about strict regulation. He is dealing with the most heavily guarded data in the world.
PII.
Right. Personally identifiable information.
Medical histories, home addresses, family details of highly vulnerable individuals, specific care requirements.
Right. A single data breach in that sector doesn't just mean a fine of shape. It can destroy a company's reputation permanently and result in massive legal liabilities.
It's a minefield.
So the logical safe bet for Phil would be to look at AI and say, nope, AI is way too risky for healthcare. We don't know where the data goes. We are going to stick to secure filing cabinets, locked doors, and manual spreadsheets.
That would be the traditional approach.
But Phil didn't do that. Instead, he used AI to build a system that is actually more compliant and more secure than his human-only systems.
He built what he terms a care plan assessor. And from a systems architecture standpoint, it is an absolute masterclass in responsible AI governance.
So break this down for us. How does a care plan assessor actually work in practice without breaking every privacy law on the books? Because the user interface of this is what listeners need to understand.
Well, Phil understood implicitly that he couldn't just dump raw patient files into the public version of ChatGPT. That was a non-starter.
Of course.
He had to create secure, siloed internal apps, ensuring the data never, ever left the company's secure ecosystem.
Okay, that's step one.
But the truly brilliant part of his architecture is that he designed a system built entirely around what he calls Q touchpoints.
Q touchpoints. Walk us through the exact life cycle of a document in this system.
This raises an important question, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you keep the human in the loop securely? The system works like this. When a local franchise drafts a complex care plan for a new patient, they don't send it straight to the AI.
Okay.
First, it is sent to a dedicated human reviewer. That human's sole job is to manually strip out and rigorously verify that absolutely all identifying PII names, addresses, birth dates has been completely removed from the file.
So someone actually reads it first.
Yes. Only after the human manually approves this sanitized, anonymized data is it passed through a secure API to the AI agent.
Okay, so the AI never actually sees a name or an address. It just sees a clinical profile, like patient X requires Y.
Exactly. The AI is entirely blind to identity. Then the AI agent takes this anonymized care plan and assesses it against the highly specific, incredibly dense legal requirements of the CPC inspections.
The CPC being the regulatory body for their sector.
Right. The AI instantly flags any protocols that fall short of legal requirements, suggests necessary clinical improvements, and then emails a highly detailed, legally cross-referenced review back to the human who originally submitted it.
Okay, I have to jump in here and aggressively push back on this architecture.
Go ahead.
Because if I'm listening to this, I'm thinking, wait a minute. You have a human manually stripping the data, then the AI reads it, then the AI sends it back to a human, who then has to read the AI's notes and manually implement the changes.
Yes.
If we have to constantly have a human double-checking the AI essentially babysitting the entire process to avoid breaking the law, doesn't that entirely defeat the point of automation? Doesn't inserting a human bottleneck at the beginning and the end slow the whole thing down to a crawl?
I completely see why you would conclude that. It highlights the exact paradox of implementing AI in highly regulated spaces. But the answer is no, it absolutely does not defeat the point.
Why not?
To understand why, we have to look at what the AI is actually replacing in this workflow. It is not replacing the basic data entry. It is replacing the massive, exhausting, cognitive, heavy lifting of legal cross-referencing.
I think I see where you're going with this.
Phil notes in the briefing that cross-referencing a complex, nuanced care plan against a massive, ever-changing book of CPC regulations used to take a human being hours and hours of grueling manual review.
Right.
It is exhausting, meticulous work. And when humans do exhausting, meticulous work, human fatigue inevitably leads to dangerous, non-compliant errors.
They miss a subclause.
Exactly. They forget a recent regulatory update. The AI, however, does that exact same complex cross-referencing in seconds, with perfect, unfailing recall of the entire legal code.
So the human in the loop isn't a bottleneck at all. The human in the loop is simply the steering wheel. The AI is the massive engine providing the raw thrust of complex legal analysis, and the human is just there to ensure it stays safely on the road and doesn't hit any pedestrians.
Precisely. And here is the kicker. Phil explicitly states that the CPC regulators actually require this human-centric approach.
Really?
The law legally does not allow a fully automated system where you just press a button and a finalized care plan spits out the other end without human oversight.
So they had to do it this way.
So by intentionally designing a system that seamlessly integrates a human verification step before and after the massive algorithmic analysis, Phil didn't just build a compliant IT system, he built an impenetrable competitive moat.
A competitive moat, because his franchise network now possesses a proprietary, deeply compliant AI system that saves them thousands of hours of legal review time, while all the other competing franchises in the market are still sitting around paralyzed by the fear of regulation.
Paying humans to manually read legal codes with a yellow highlighter. Exactly. Phil notes that this makes Bridgewater visually look like they are light years ahead of the curve to clients, to partners, and most importantly, to the regulators themselves.
Wow.
In this case, governance wasn't a barrier to AI. Adoption AI became the ultimate tool for achieving perfect governance.
So what does this all mean? When we zoom out and look at this entire journey we've just been on, from the panic phone call to the care plan assessor, it follows such a remarkably clear, logical trajectory for any business.
It really does. It's a map.
It has to start at the very top. The CEO must undergo that fundamental mindset shift, actively seeking out the necessary AI fluency so they can be the silversmith.
Whether that means investing in an intensive Oxford course like Joe or downloading a 15-pound Udemy course with the management team like Rava.
And from there, the immediate next step is the workforce. You have to actively, empathetically neutralize their fear.
You cannot just hand down cold corporate mandates.
You have to invest the time to do the one-on-one work, like Anthony, reframing the intimidating tech as a personal cheetah that the employee controls.
And you must utilize Allison's brilliant co-creation method to identify the specific drudgery the staff actually wants to eliminate, turning the AI from a competitor into a liberator.
And once the staff is empowered and the friction is gone, you have to resist the overwhelming urge to just coast on the immediate cost savings of efficiency.
You have to pivot aggressively to growth.
You have to hunt for the hidden market gaps, like the long vacuum cords, using AI pattern recognition.
Or you use the AI as a tutor to learn a complex skill like Python, allowing you to scale your regional business into a national powerhouse overnight.
And finally, you secure all of those massive rapid gains by wrapping them in responsible, heavily structured governance.
You build those human-in-the-loop Q touch points.
So that instead of running from regulation, strict compliance becomes your ultimate competitive advantage over the rest of the market.
It is an incredibly potent step-by-step playbook. And when you put it all together, it leads directly to a final, profound observation from the former prime minister in our sources.
The one that completely flips the script on how we have always viewed the global economy.
Yes. It is perhaps the most crucial takeaway for any listener running an SME today.
Because for decades, the foundational assumption of business has been that massive multinational corporations have all the inherent advantages.
Right. They have the deep capital, the endless resources, the sheer gravitational mass to crush smaller competitors.
But the source material argues that in the age of applied artificial intelligence, that dynamic is actually inverted.
Yes. The Prime Minister, drawing on deep, private conversations with CEOs of the world's largest companies during his time at Goldman Sachs, notes a glaring, fatal vulnerability in these massive corporations.
What's the vulnerability?
They are essentially lumbering bureaucracies.
Lumbering bureaucracies, meaning they are massive, slow-moving, and incredibly hard to steer.
Exactly. Everything requires committees, board approvals, risk assessments, and massive, multi-year infrastructure shifts. A CEO of a Fortune 500 company cannot possibly know every intimate, granular detail of their daily operation.
They are too far removed from the ground floor.
But a small business owner does. If you run a 20-person company, you know your business inside and out.
You know exactly where every single point of friction is.
And more importantly, you have the agility to change your entire strategic direction by lunch. As the sources point out, to implement this universal technology, you do not need to build billion-dollar server farms.
You need three things: a standard laptop, a stable internet connection, and a growth mindset.
Because an SME can iterate. You can execute the core loop of AI adoption. Start, learn, adapt.
So if a specific AI prompt or workflow doesn't work on Monday morning, the CEO can tweak the prompt and deploy a brand new company-wide solution by Tuesday afternoon.
A multinational corporation simply cannot move at that speed. AI acts as a great equalizer, taking the raw processing and analytical power previously reserved for global tech giants and placing it directly into the agile, highly adaptable hands of the SME.
It levels the playing field in a way we frankly haven't seen since the invention of the internet itself. But that actually brings me to a final thought.
Okay.
Something that wasn't explicitly laid out in the briefing documents, but that feels like the inevitable, slightly mind-bending conclusion of everything we've talked about today.
Where does this lead us in a decade?
Think about it. If AI is truly this great equalizer, if it allows a 10-person regional company to seamlessly output the work, the deep market research, the complex software coding, and the perfect legal compliance of a 100-person multinational corporation, what actually happens to the fundamental concept of company size a decade from now?
That's a huge question.
We have always equated the physical size of a workforce, the headcount, with the market dominance of a company. But what if the future global giants aren't actually giants at all?
No.
What if the companies dominating the next century are just hyper-agile, brilliantly led, 10-person businesses, empowered by an entire unseen workforce of silicon cheetahs? Think about that as you look at your own daily bottlenecks.
A powerful, paradigm-shifting thought to consider. The future belongs to the agile.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.